You know what's worse than getting your wallet stolen? Having someone with power take your ID on purpose, right before the biggest day of your life. Mr. Harrison, our principal at Northwood High, did exactly that this morning. My heart was pounding, not from anger yet, but from a cold, creeping dread. It was barely 11:30, and my AP Calculus BC exam, the one I'd studied nonstop for since September, was at 1 o'clock sharp. You needed your student ID to even get into the exam hall, no exceptions. That rule, posted on a bright yellow sign outside the gym every year, was etched into my brain, but Mr. Harrison, with his perpetually wrinkled suit and the faint, unsettling smell of cheap aftershave mixed with stale coffee, just slid my laminated card across his desk and into his top drawer, clicking it shut with a sense of finality that made my stomach clench. "Alexandra, we need to discuss your recent disregard for school policy," he'd said, leaning back in his squeaky leather chair, the fluorescent light above reflecting off his thinning hair. His office, always too warm, smelled faintly of old paper and the lemon-scented cleaner misses. Henderson, the janitor, used on the laminate flooring. I remember the clock on his wall, a standard school-issue gray circle with black numbers, showing exactly 11:23 a.m. My bus, the number 7 Express, usually got me to school by 7:55, leaving plenty of time to review before first period. Today, I'd arrived even earlier, full of nervous energy. The supposed infraction? "An untucked hoodie drawstring," he'd declared, picking up a printed photo from his desk. It was a grainy, zoomed-in shot of me from yesterday afternoon, leaving the library, the blue string of my Northwood Eagles hoodie indeed hanging out from under my blazer. Policy 4C, subsection 7. All clothing, including accessories, must be worn in a manner consistent with school decorum and not pose a potential safety hazard. A hoodie drawstring, a safety hazard? The absurdity of it all was overwhelming. My mouth felt dry. I tried to explain that I'd been rushing from debate club practice, that it was an oversight. He cut me off with a raised hand. "Your parents need to come in, Alexandra. We'll schedule a meeting, and then, and only then, will your identification card be returned." My college applications, my scholarship interviews, my entire future hinged on getting good scores on these APs. This wasn't just about a piece of plastic, it was about everything. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Chloe, my best friend. "Hey, did you see the email? AP Calc Room changed. It's now in the auditorium, not gym. Check your school inbox ASAP. Also, don't forget your ID." Her message, timestamped 11:15 a.m., flashed on my screen. I'd seen the email 10 minutes earlier, while waiting for Mr. Harrison to finish his phone call. The change itself wasn't the issue. The new room required a second ID check, a stricter one because of the specialized equipment. "Excuse me, Mr. Harrison," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have the AP Calculus BC exam this afternoon. It starts at 1. I need my ID to get in." He looked at me over the rim of his reading glasses, a slow, deliberate movement. "Well, Alexandra, perhaps this will impress upon you the importance of following rules. Consequences, you see. Your parents can bring it when they come for our meeting." He gestured vaguely at the small, framed photo of his family on his desk, a generic smiling group shot taken on a beach somewhere, sun-bleached and slightly yellowed. The sunlight streaming through his blinds at that moment cast long, sharp shadows across the photo. It felt like a trap, carefully set. I could almost hear the click. My mind raced. My mom was at work, a double shift at the hospital, completely unreachable until 6 p.m. My dad was away on a business trip in Pittsburgh, not due back until Friday. There was no way to get them here by 1 o'clock. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act to sabotage me. Mr. Harrison knew my parents' schedules. He'd signed off on my scholarship applications, which listed their contact info and work hours. This wasn't about a drawstring. It was personal. He seemed to enjoy the power, the control. I stood there trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't some minor detention. This was my future, crumbling right before my eyes. The metallic taste of fear filled my mouth. "Mr. Harrison, please. This is for my college acceptance. I need to take this exam." My voice cracked on the last word. He just smiled, a thin, humorless line. "Perhaps you should have thought of that before disregarding school dress code, Alexandra." His tone was patronizing, dismissive. The cheap office clock on the wall now showed 11:29 a.m. The minutes were ticking away, each one a hammer blow against my dwindling chances. I knew, with a sudden, chilling certainty, that pleading wouldn't work. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a power play. I turned and walked out of his office, the stale air of the hallway hitting me like a physical force. The linoleum floor gleamed under the strip lighting, reflecting my distorted figure. My backpack felt unusually heavy. My first thought was to call Chloe, but what could she do? My hands were trembling as I pulled out my phone. I needed proof, something concrete, anything. I remembered the school's digital policy handbook, accessible through the student portal. Every student had to sign an acknowledgement form confirming they'd read it. I'd skimmed through it back in freshman year, mostly focusing on the sections about internet usage and cheating. Now I needed specifics, and fast. I found a quiet corner near the lockers on the second floor, away from the main thoroughfare. The lockers themselves, painted a dull beige, always smelled faintly of old gym socks and forgotten lunches. I logged into the portal on my phone. The school's Wi-Fi was notoriously spotty, but today, thankfully, it held. I navigated through the menus, student resources, then official documents, then Northwood High School Student Handbook 224. My fingers flew across the screen. I scrolled past attendance policies, academic integrity clauses, disciplinary procedures. My eyes scanned for identification, ID card, confiscation. There it was. Section 7, subsection 4. Confiscation of student identification. An ID card may be temporarily confiscated for severe infractions, e.g., fighting, vandalism, drug possession, pending an immediate parental conference. For minor dress code violations, Policy 4C, a verbal warning will be issued, followed by a written warning for repeat offenses. Confiscation for minor infractions is not permitted without prior written notification to parents and a scheduled conference date, occurring no later than 24 hours after the infraction. My hoodie string was a minor infraction. He had violated his own school policy. This was it. This was my leverage, but just knowing it wasn't enough. I needed proof that he knew it, or that the policy was in effect. I scrolled further down, past the main body of the handbook, to the revision history. Every update, every change, was meticulously logged with a date and timestamp. This current version, the one I was reading, had been updated last week on Tuesday, May 7th at 9 o'clock in the morning. So the policy was current, and he, as principal, was responsible for knowing and enforcing it. My hands were still shaking, but now it was with a surge of adrenaline, not just fear. A plan started to form in my mind, hazy but present. I scrolled back up to the specific section about ID confiscation for minor infractions. My finger hovered over the screenshot button. I had to be careful. A simple screenshot of the text itself might be dismissed as easily manipulated. I needed context, proof that it was from the official school portal, timestamped. My eyes darted around the screen. The URL bar at the top, showing Northwood High EDU/Student Portal Handbook, was crucial. The date and time on my phone's notification bar, visible at the very top of the screen, were also important. 11:35 a.m. I took the screenshot. The click of the phone shutter sounded incredibly loud in the quiet hallway. I had it, one piece of the puzzle. But it still wasn't enough. I needed more. The image on Mr. Harrison's desk, the grainy one of me, bothered me. Who took it? Why? It felt premeditated, like he was looking for an excuse. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. This was calculated. The hallway was almost empty now. Most students were either in class or heading to their pre-exam prep sessions. The second bell for third period had rung a few minutes ago, its shrill sound echoing down the deserted corridors. A faint scent of bleach wafted from the first-floor bathrooms. I leaned against a cold locker, trying to think clearly. The stakes were too high to mess this up. One wrong move, and my chance at a full scholarship to State University could vanish. My phone buzzed again. Chloe. Alex, are you okay? I saw you leave Harrison's office. You looked pale. Everything all right with the ape calc? Did you find the new room? Her concern was a small comfort, a flicker of warmth in the cold fear that gripped me. I quickly typed back. Not okay. Harrison took my ID for the hoodie string. Says I can't get it back till my parents come. I can't take the AP calc without it. I waited, holding my breath. A few seconds later, her reply came. What? Are you serious? That's insane. That's against policy, isn't it? I swear I read something about that in the handbook. Like, they can't just take it for a dress code. Let me check my copy. I almost laughed in relief. Chloe was a walking encyclopedia of school rules. She was in student government and always knew the official lines. Her checking the handbook would be independent verification, another layer of proof. While I waited for her, I thought about Mr. Harrison. He'd always been a stickler for rules, but never like this. His usual disciplinary actions were detentions, stern lectures, maybe calling home for something more serious. This felt vindictive. Was there something else going on? A sudden thought hit me. His face earlier had seemed almost triumphant, a slight smirk playing on his lips as he slid my ID into the drawer. It wasn't just about my hoodie string. There had to be more. I started walking towards the library, my footsteps echoing on the polished floor. The silence was unnerving. The library, usually a hive of whispered activity, was also quiet, most students in class. Mrs. Davison, the librarian, a sweet woman with silver hair always pulled back in a neat bun, looked up from her computer. She usually knew everything happening in the school. But I couldn't just blurt out what happened. Not yet. I needed to gather more evidence to solidify my case. I found an empty computer terminal in the back, near the non-fiction section, where the smell of old books and dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight coming through the tall windows. I logged into the school network again. This time, I went to the staff directory. Mr. Harrison's profile was there, listing his tenure, his educational background, his contact information, and, crucially, his assigned responsibilities. Enforcement of school policies and regulations. That line jumped out at me. He was supposed to know the handbook inside and out. His actions were a direct contradiction of his responsibilities. This strengthened my position even further. The time was now 11:47 a.m. The deadline for the exam was looming, just over an hour away. I knew I needed to contact someone higher up, but who? The district superintendent? The school board? It felt like a massive leap. I needed something less confrontational first. Something that would put Harrison on the spot without escalating it to a full-blown war just yet. The school's official communication platform, Northwood Connect, popped into my head. All official announcements, changes in policy, and disciplinary warnings were logged there. Teachers also used it to send messages to students and parents. Could there be a record of his intent or some other disciplinary action against me that he hadn't mentioned? I started searching. My name. His name. Dress code. ID confiscation. Nothing directly related to me, no official warnings or prior notifications. Then I remembered something from last week. There had been an anonymous complaint about students using their IDs to buy snacks for non-students during lunch break, a violation of the cafeteria policy, which was a separate document. Mr. Harrison had sent out an email blast about it. I searched for that email. There it was. Subject: Urgent reminder, student ID usage policy. Sent. Last Friday, May 10th at 3:32 p.m. I clicked on it. The email reiterated the strict rules about ID usage, but it also referenced the consequences. It clearly stated, repeated violations of the student ID usage policy will result in a verbal warning, then a written warning, and only upon a third documented offense, temporary confiscation of the ID pending a parent meeting. This was a different policy about ID usage, not ID confiscation for dress code. But it underscored the principle. Even for ID-related issues, confiscation was a last resort after warnings. My current offense was a dress code issue, not ID usage, and it was a first offense for the drawstring. He was applying a disproportionate punishment from an entirely different category of infractions. This was another crack in his armor. I took another screenshot, making sure the timestamp from the email and the URL for Northwood Connect were visible. 11:55 a.m. 2 pieces of solid, incontrovertible evidence. It was a good start. My hands felt more steady now. This wasn't just me against Mr. Harrison. It was me, armed with his own rules, against his abuse of power. I felt a surge of resolve. I walked with purpose, my heart still thumping, but with a different rhythm now, a beat of defiance instead of despair. As I approached Mr. Harrison's office, I saw Mrs. Davison, the librarian, walking down the hall, pushing a cart of books. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small, encouraging smile. It wasn't much, but it felt like a tiny boost. The door to Mr. Harrison's office was ajar, just slightly, letting out the faint murmur of a male voice. My pulse quickened. Was he talking to someone? Another teacher? A parent? I hesitated for a split second, then pushed the door open. He was on the phone, his back to me, looking out his window at the sparse, well-manicured lawn outside. The school grounds were always immaculate, a point of pride for Mr. Harrison. He was saying, yes, her parents are quite busy, but I assure you, this disciplinary action is necessary to ensure adherence to school standards. A strong example needs to be set, especially for students like Alexandra, who are otherwise high achievers. It sends a message. He was talking about me, and he sounded like he was enjoying it. The anger, hot and sharp, finally broke through my fear. He turned, startled, his phone still pressed to his ear. He hadn't expected me back so soon. His eyes narrowed. Alexandra, I'm on a call. I walked further into the room, stopping directly in front of his desk. Mr. Harrison, I need my student ID now. My voice was firm, surprisingly steady. He bristled. We've already discussed this. Your ID will be returned once your parents... I cut him off. No, Mr. Harrison, you are in violation of Northwood High School's official student handbook, Policy 7C, subsection 4. Confiscation of an ID for a minor dress code infraction is not permitted without prior written notification to parents and a scheduled conference within 24 hours. None of which has happened. His face, initially flushed with annoyance, now paled slightly. The phone dropped from his ear, hitting the desk with a soft thud. He stared at me, his usual composure cracking. The faint scent of his aftershave seemed to sharpen in the sudden tension. He looked genuinely surprised, as if he couldn't believe I'd challenged him, let alone with his own rules. The clock on his wall read 12 o'clock and 7 minutes. I took a deep breath, ready for the fight. This was just the beginning. What are you talking about, Alexandra? He finally managed, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. He was trying to regain control, to intimidate me. But I wasn't intimidated anymore. I had the facts. I'm talking about the official school policy, sir. The one you are responsible for enforcing. The one that was last updated on May 7th, 9 a.m. I have screenshots of the relevant sections, time-stamped from the official school portal, showing that your actions are directly contradictory to our established rules. I held up my phone, not close enough for him to grab, but clearly showing the bright screen. His gaze flickered to my phone, then back to my face. The shift in his demeanor was palpable. The smugness was gone, replaced by a mixture of shock and dawning panic. He knew. He absolutely knew the policy. He was counting on me not knowing it, or not having the guts to call him out. The silence in the office was thick, broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights. The phone he had dropped still lay on his desk, its screen a dark, silent rectangle. His knuckles were white where he gripped the edge of his desk. "This is an insubordinate display, Alexandra," he hissed, trying to pivot to my behavior. "You cannot barge into my office and make demands." "I am making a claim based on documented school policy, Mr. Harrison," I corrected him, my voice unwavering. "And I need my ID." The AP Calculus BC exam starts in 53 minutes. I will miss it if I don't have it. My college acceptance is riding on this exam. "Your actions are not only a violation of policy, but are directly jeopardizing my academic future." I could feel my heart pounding against my ribs, but a strange calm had settled over me. This was it. All or nothing. He looked at the top drawer of his desk, where he'd locked my ID. Then he looked at me. His eyes were cold, calculating. He was assessing the situation, trying to find a way out, a loophole, anything. The window behind him showed the perfectly green football field, where a lone sprinkler was watering the grass, oblivious to the high-stakes drama unfolding inside. The scent of fresh-cut grass, faint but distinct, somehow made its way into the room, a jarring contrast to the tension. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding, Alexandra," he said, his voice now noticeably softer, a desperate attempt at conciliation. Perhaps I was overly strict. "I am merely trying to uphold standards." "Overly strict or deliberately obstructive?" I challenged him. "There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Harrison. You confiscated my ID without following due process as outlined in the student handbook, and you did so knowing I had a critical exam today that requires it. This isn't about standards, it's about power." My words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. He flinched. He picked up his phone, slowly, and placed it back in its cradle. He didn't look at me, but stared at the desk. The silence stretched again. I stood my ground, my phone still held up, the screenshots clearly visible on the screen. The timestamp on my phone's display, showing 12 o'clock and 9 minutes, was now another piece of evidence. Every second that passed without him taking action was further proof of his delay tactics, his unwillingness to rectify his mistake. Finally, with a sigh that sounded almost theatrical, he reached for the small silver key he kept on his keyring, jangling slightly. He unlocked the top drawer. I watched his hand, my eyes fixed on the movement. He pulled out my student ID, the plastic card glinting under the fluorescent light. He placed it on the desk, not pushing it towards me, but just leaving it there as if daring me to take it. "Here is your ID, Alexandra," he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Now, I suggest you go to your exam. We will still need to have that conversation with your parents, however, about your insubordinate behavior and your dress code violation." He was still trying to save face to maintain some semblance of authority. But I knew, and he knew, that he had lost. "There will be no need for a parental conference regarding my insubordinate behavior, Mr. Harrison," I stated, reaching across the desk to retrieve my ID. The plastic felt cool and smooth in my hand, a profound relief washing over me. "I was simply upholding the policies of Northwood High School, just as you are sworn to do. And as for the dress code, a verbal warning, as per Policy 4C, subsection 7, would have sufficed, not an illegal confiscation." He opened his mouth to retort, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned and walked out, my ID clutched tightly in my hand. The sense of triumph was exhilarating, but it was quickly replaced by the urgency of the moment. I had less than an hour. I checked the time on my phone again, 12:12 p.m. I needed to get to the auditorium, find my seat, and calm my nerves. This whole confrontation had taken a toll, my adrenaline still surging. My hands were still shaking, but now it was from a mixture of lingering anger and the sheer relief of having my ID back. The hallway was empty, the air still tasting faintly of lemon cleaner. I made a beeline for the auditorium, my mind already shifting gears from confrontation to quadratic equations and integrals. As I walked, I sent a quick text to Chloe. "Got it back, he caved. We'll tell you everything after the exam." Her immediate reply, "OMG, yes, go crush that exam." A small smile touched my lips. She was right. I had to crush it. For myself, for proving him wrong, for my future. I entered the auditorium, the large space already filling with nervous students. The invigilators, 2 history teachers, and a guidance counselor were checking IDs at the door. I presented mine with a sense of quiet pride. "Alexandra Reed," the guidance counselor Ms. Albright read, looking at my photo, then at me. She smiled. "Good luck, Alexandra. You've worked incredibly hard for this." Her kind words were exactly what I needed. I found my assigned seat in row G, seat 12, marked with a small sticky note bearing my name. I sat down, pulled out my calculator, and took a deep, steadying breath. The air in the auditorium was cooler than Mr. Harrison's office, smelling faintly of auditorium seats and fresh printer ink from the exam booklets. The clock on the wall above the stage, a digital one, flashed 12:40 p.m. 20 minutes to spare. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the adrenaline subside, pushing the confrontation with Mr. Harrison to the back of my mind. For now, all that mattered was calculus. The exam itself was a blur of equations and problem solving. 2 hours and 15 minutes later, I walked out, feeling a mix of exhaustion and cautious optimism. I had answered every question, double-checked my work, and felt confident I had done well. Chloe was waiting for me outside, her eyes wide with anticipation. So, spill! What happened? She demanded, practically dragging me to a quieter spot near the school's main entrance. The afternoon sun was warm on my face. I recounted the entire confrontation, showing her the screenshots on my phone, the handbook policy, the time-stamped email from Mr. Harrison, and even the photo of my phone's clock at 12:07, confirming the exact moment I had challenged him. She listened, her jaw dropping, then nodding emphatically. Unbelievable, she breathed. He really thought he could just get away with that. You were amazing, Alex. Seriously standing up to him like that? I shrugged, a nervous laugh escaping me. I didn't have a choice. My future was on the line. So what now? Chloe asked, her brow furrowed. He's going to be furious. He'll probably try to get you for insubordination again. Maybe, I admitted, but I have the evidence. And he knows I have it, that's the key. He can't just make up rules to fit his agenda anymore, not with me. The thought of further retaliation still sent a chill down my spine, but the fear was different now. It was no longer paralyzing. It was a challenge. We walked towards the bus stop, the chatter of other students slowly fading behind us. As we waited for the number 7 bus, I pulled out my phone again. The screenshots were still there, clear and damning. I decided then and there that this wasn't over. This wasn't just about my ID and my exam. It was about principle. It was about holding those in power accountable. Mr. Harrison couldn't just abuse his position without consequences. The next few days were tense. I expected to be called into Mr. Harrison's office again, to face some new trumped-up charge. But nothing happened. He avoided me in the hallways, his gaze sliding away whenever our paths crossed. It was unsettling, the silence. It felt like the calm before a storm. I kept my phone close, the screenshots ready. I even printed out hard copies, just in case. My mom, when I finally told her everything that evening after her double shift, was furious. He did what? To you? Right before your AP exam? That's absolutely unacceptable, Alexandra. I'm calling the school board first thing tomorrow morning. Her anger, a fierce protectiveness, was a huge relief. Having her support, knowing she was on my side, made all the difference. She was practical and direct. She took out her phone, opened her calendar app, and started looking for available times. I'll also make sure to forward those screenshots to them. This is not how a principal should behave. The fact that she was going to escalate it without me even asking confirmed that my actions were justified. The school board meeting was scheduled for the following Monday, a week after the incident. My mom and I arrived at the district office 10 minutes early, finding a small, sterile waiting room with uncomfortable plastic chairs and outdated magazines. The air conditioning was set too high, making me shiver slightly despite the warm May weather outside, Mrs. Albright, my guidance counselor, was already there, sipping a cup of herbal tea. She gave me a sympathetic look. Alexandra, I'm so glad you decided to pursue this, she said quietly. Mr. Harrison's behavior has been concerning, to say the least. This isn't the first time he's overstepped his authority, but it's certainly the most egregious incident I've witnessed. Her words were a confirmation of my suspicions. It wasn't just me. Other staff members knew. This gave me even more courage. She handed me a small, folded piece of paper. This is a copy of Mr. Harrison's disciplinary record from his previous school district. Just for your information. You might find it illuminating. My heart pounded as I discreetly slipped the paper into my pocket. The meeting started promptly at 2 o'clock. 2 members of the school board were present. Ms. Davies, a stern-faced woman with impeccably coiffed silver hair, and Mr. Chen, a younger man who listened intently, occasionally jotting notes on a legal pad. Mr. Harrison was there too, sitting stiffly beside his lawyer, a man with a sharp suit and an even sharper gaze. He wouldn't meet my eyes. My mom calmly presented our case, detailing the events, the exact times, and Mr. Harrison's refusal to return my ID. She highlighted the critical nature of the AP exam and how his actions jeopardized my academic future. Then it was my turn. I spoke clearly, concisely, presenting my screenshots as evidence. I explained how I had consulted the official school handbook, how Mr. Harrison's actions directly contradicted Policy 7C, subsection 4. I even referenced the email he sent about ID usage, pointing out the discrepancy in his application of disciplinary measures. My voice remained steady, despite the knot of nerves in my stomach. The room was silent except for my words. At 12 o'clock and 7 minutes, I stated, looking directly at Ms. Davies, I re-entered Mr. Harrison's office, armed with the knowledge of his own rules. I had taken a screenshot of the policy at 11:35 a.m. I had another screenshot of his email at 11:55 a.m. He knew he was violating policy. He chose to do so anyway, seemingly to make an example of me. He eventually returned my ID, but only after I directly challenged him with his own regulations. The AP exam started at 1 o'clock. My ID was returned at 12:12 p.m. I was left with less than an hour to travel to the new exam location, calm my nerves, and prepare for a critical college entrance exam, all because of a hoodie drawstring. I saw Mr. Chen nod slowly. Ms. Davies, however, remained impassive. Mr. Harrison's lawyer then spoke, attempting to dismiss my claims as a misunderstanding and a student's exaggerated perception of events. He argued that Mr. Harrison was simply trying to instill discipline, but the evidence was too strong. I felt a surge of confidence. At that point, my mom quietly mentioned the disciplinary record Mrs. Albright had given us. Ms. Davies' eyes widened slightly as she scanned the document. It detailed 2 previous instances at Mr. Harrison's former district where he had been reprimanded for disproportionate disciplinary actions and failure to adhere to established protocols. The air in the room grew even colder. Mr. Harrison shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The lawyer tried to object, but Ms. Davies cut him off. "This is highly relevant," she stated, her voice sharp. "We were unaware of these specific details during his hiring process." The meeting concluded after another hour of intense discussion. The board members thanked us for coming. As we left, Mrs. Albright gave me another encouraging smile. Mr. Harrison and his lawyer remained behind, their faces grim. The scent of disinfectant from the district office's floor cleaner seemed to follow us out into the fresh air. I felt a profound sense of relief, but also an exhaustion that seeped into my bones. The battle was won, but the war wasn't over yet. 2 weeks later, an official letter arrived from the school district. It stated that, following a thorough review of the incident and Mr. Harrison's conduct, his contract would not be renewed for the upcoming academic year. In plain terms, he was fired. The letter also included a formal apology to me, Alexandra Reed, for the distress and academic jeopardy I had experienced, and confirmed that the incident would not appear on my permanent school record. They even offered to provide a letter of recommendation from the district superintendent, should I need it for any future endeavors. My mom read it aloud, a triumphant smile on her face. I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. Justice. Actual, tangible justice. Mr. Harrison was gone. I learned later that Mrs. Albright, along with several other teachers, had also come forward with their own complaints about his overbearing and often arbitrary disciplinary style after seeing that the school board was taking my case seriously. My single screenshot had opened the floodgates. 4 weeks later, I received my AP Calculus BC score, a 5. The highest possible score. I'd done it. The relief was immense. My college acceptance was confirmed, full scholarship secured. Northwood High started its search for a new principal, and the school atmosphere almost immediately felt lighter, less stifling. The rigid, fear-based adherence to rules slowly began to loosen, replaced by a more collaborative approach. Teachers seemed more relaxed, students less anxious. It was a subtle but profound shift. 8 weeks later, I was packing for college. The Northwood Eagles hoodie, the one with the problematic drawstring, was folded neatly in my suitcase. I looked at my student ID, the one Mr. Harrison had tried to take. It was a simple piece of plastic, but it represented so much more now. It was a symbol of my resilience, of standing up for myself, of finding my voice. I learned that sometimes the biggest bullies aren't the ones in the schoolyard, but the ones in power. And sometimes the most powerful weapon you have isn't a loud voice or physical strength, but a simple screenshot, a policy document, and the courage to challenge injustice. What I learned: always know your rights. Always document everything. And never let anyone, no matter how much power they think they have, walk all over you. My phone's lock screen still shows the time, 12:07, right below my name.